Back on the Cape Flats this week, we asked what difference the army is making to gang violence. We expected to see police and the army everywhere in the hot spots, but they seemed as scarce as parking spots in a busy mall at month end. Residents seemed happy enough that the army was around, but many asked us, where are the arrests? Are they removing guns? And what happens when they leave? It's a weekday afternoon in Tafelsig, Western Cape. Slowly meandering between homes with kids playing on the streets are armoured vehicles from the South African National Defence Force. For human rights activist Roshanda Pascoe, the army's arrival is not one moment too soon. This house, where she has to stay for now, is a safe house to protect her and her family from reprisal by gangsters against whom she testified in court.
For me, the army was like bringing that stability that our people need, because I knew the tiredness of our people. I knew that they couldn't handle anymore.
Carte Blanche was here just after the deadly weekend of 6 and 7 July, when 11 people were murdered in Philippi East. 6 of the deceased were young women who were shot dead execution style. That was the weekend that tipped the scales. Before then, Minister Becky Cele had rejected calls for the army to step in. But after that weekend, he made a surprise announcement in Parliament.
This morning, where they started to deploy extra police, and tomorrow was sealing off the Western Cape Flats with the South African National Defence Force.
1,200 troops were flown into Cape Town and they started patrolling in their designated areas of the Cape Flats. The army arrived 3 weeks ago, and it was a few days before they were seen on the streets. Their modus operandi seems to be to support the police hunting for wanted gangsters, drugs, and illegal firearms. As we followed them, residents appeared to welcome their presence.
So what I feel is the army is doing a very good job here in Mitchell's Plain. They're doing thumbs up for them, really. Thumbs up for them.
But this reformed gangster who asked to remain anonymous has his doubts.
It does have a little impact, but it's like a pinch. If you look at it this way, the army's here now and then everybody's afraid, you know what, they're not going to do something in that time, but as soon as the army leaves, things just go back to normal.
The troop deployment is reported to be costing the cash-strapped South African National Defence Force 23 million for the first 3 months. Aldred de Klerk specializes in comparative policing and social conflict, and he feels that the army can maintain its presence.
Firstly, the army has a reserve budget for this kind of thing, from which they will take this money to allow themselves to go and exercise this duty, this call to duty. However, they will also have their supplementary budgets in other departments that will have to pay back some of the money spent by the army.
After the first week, the army's deployment led to a drop in the weekend murder rate from 42 to 25. But that was short-lived. The next weekend, 46 people were killed. Observers attributed the spike to payday when crime stats are generally higher. It was the trauma team at the Specialist Referral Hospital Groote Schuur that picked up the pieces after the mayhem. It's absolutely mind-boggling to understand how doctors cope in the trauma units. I've walked through the Groote Schuur Hospital and I've counted at least 30 patients that are in serious need of medical attention, from gunshot wounds as well as stabbing wounds. For the last 20 years, Professor Andrew Nicol has led the trauma team. They treat more than 70 gunshot victims every month. They've been deeply disturbed by the severity of injuries they see lately.
Well, we're seeing this very strange phenomenon that instead of a person just being shot once, we're seeing patients who are coming in who've been shot multiple times. We admitted a patient 2 weeks ago who had 37 holes in her body.
As a result, Nicol and his team used groundbreaking procedures developed by the military. This young man was shot 6 times and was bleeding to death. Repairing a partially severed femoral artery caused by a bullet would take too long. A quick fix was needed.
So what we do is to place a piece of drip set into the vessel, into his femoral artery, to re-establish blood flow and to stop the bleeding. It's a very rapid intervention, but it allows him to survive this type of injury and to keep his leg.
This young man and countless other victims from the Cape Flats owe their lives to the quick and innovative treatment at Groote Schuur.
It's quite staggering what we can get, the patients we can get through these days using these types of techniques. And we currently, about 2/3 of our patients are surviving this type of abbreviated surgery.
Back in the community, it's mothers like Rushanda Pasco who have to find a way to fight back against the deadly gangs every day. 3 years ago, she witnessed a horrific gang fight in front of her home in Manenberg.
People were standing in their windows, in their doors, and they were all watching and screaming. Myself, personally, we couldn't intervene. They are too much.
Angela Davids was brutally murdered that day. Rushanda tried to help him, but there was little she could do as she faced his killers. She remains haunted by their eyes.
The coldness, the way nothing is going to change their mind, only by the mission they are here to do and execute. It is the worst I've ever seen.
When no one on her street was prepared to come forward as a witness, Rushanda made a life-changing decision and took her children into her confidence.
I would never be able to live with myself knowing I have seen and I have done nothing. And I'm going to take this decision to testify, but I know it's going to impact on your lives.
The price has been high. On the day before she testified, Rushanda's home was shot at by gangsters. She wasn't at home. Her children called her in desperation.
I could hear the screams of my grandchildren. I could hear my grandson screaming, "Mama, please come and help us. They're going to kill us." And the fear, that moment, to be away from my children was the worst ever.
Despite the family's terrifying ordeal, Rushanda did testify in court. The family are now in a safe house, and she remains in touch with other activists about the army's deployment.
They are the police security now, protecting the police, but not the people or the community at large.
Her feelings are echoed by more residents who feel that patrolling in an area for a short time and then moving on has little lasting effect. Minister Cele has since promised another 1,000 police officers for the Western Cape. But Western Cape Premier Alan Winde says it's not enough. He's asking for 4,500 extra police. He's launched an intergovernmental dispute on policing and is prepared to go to court to get those extra officers, because it all boils down to ratios, he says.
So the South African ratio, 1 police officer to every 375 members of the public. We know that. In this province, if you take that same ratio, it's 1 police officer to every 560 members of the public. So to get the ratio to the norm, we would then, that gives you a number. That's the 4,500.
Every community in the Cape Flats is asking for extra policing, and it's amazing what extra boots on the ground can achieve, like what has happened here in Bonteheerville. Bonteheerville has over the years had some of the highest murder rates on the Cape Flats. Although crime fighting is the domain of the police, the city of Cape Town flooded the suburb with 100 of its own law enforcement officers from the 1st of July.
We're moving beyond just criticizing and being angry about what isn't happening from national government side. We're doing something as best we can ourselves, and we have seen a significant improvement in the situation, which is my argument to my colleagues in the city to try and replicate this initiative elsewhere.
The results from this operation have been surprising, and the city says it shows what extra policing can achieve.
It's the first month in a very, very long time that we've had no gang-related murders in Bonteheerville. And that is credited to the community, it's credited to this team of officers that have gotten onto the ground, that have built relationships and partnered with this community.
In the meantime, the future remains unclear for victims and witnesses like Rushanda and her family. The court case where she testified has not been concluded, and the private funds for their safe house are running out. But despite the hardship, she joined forces with other mothers this week.
I think I support the Mums Move for Justice. This march is all about the mothers that have lost their children, but also our service providers, the policemen that have died most recently on the streets of of the Cape Flats, defending our people.
While socio-economic upliftment and more police may reduce the crime on the Cape Flats, for now, it's the mothers and families who are digging in for the long haul.
As an activist, yes, it's dangerous. But I'd rather be out there in the march, in Cape Town, defending still our people, than dying as a coward being silent.